There are moments when violence doesn't arrive with sirens, no warning, no chaos. Sometimes it comes sealed in an envelope, locked behind courtroom doors, waiting for the right moment to be opened. In December of 2025, that moment arrived. A federal indictment was unsealed in Chicago, and what spilled out wasn't just a list of charges. It was a map of bloodshed, years of violence, a trail of names, neighborhoods, and lives cut short. At the center of all of this was a number, 079. And for years, that number whispered fear across Chicago's South Side. On the South Side of Chicago, streets aren't just streets, they're borders, lines that decide who belongs and who doesn't. For one group, identity was rooted in a stretch of asphalt near 79th Street. The number wasn't symbolic, it was geographic, territorial. Faceworld 079, a set of BD and GDs located on West 80th Street of Inglewood. The set was previously called Boys Town 79, but was later renamed Faceworld 079 in honor of the late Lil Face, who died on October 17, 2010, when he was killed by members of RICO.
So how y'all come up with the name Faceworld?
Shit, phone that died name was Face, you feel me? I was a shorty when he died, so I don't, you know, nah. But we just inherit all this shit, really.
And according to federal prosecutors, it became something more, an enterprise, one that didn't just defend its space, but enforced it. The indictment wouldn't call them a crew or a clique. It used a colder word, organization. And for years, investigators quietly documented what that organization allegedly left behind. The violence didn't always explode in dark alleys. Sometimes it arrived in daylight, on public transit, at street corners, in places where no one expected bullets. According to federal records, gunfire erupted on a CTA bus, passengers scrambling for cover with nowhere to run.
We know it's a 21-year-old man being treated here at the University of Chicago Medical Center, and the good news is that he is in stable condition. The Chicago Fire Department telling us that he was shot in the back while getting on that CTA bus. We don't know exactly what led up to the shooting or any type of motive, but we saw that heavy police presence there near 79th and Drexel. Witnesses telling us the 21-year-old was getting on that CTA bus when he was shot. When police arrived on scene, the shooter was already gone. It happened as many people were around that area. We saw some community activists on scene. They tell us they've been trying to reach the youth to prevent these shootings and say it's frustrating to see the kind of crime continue.
We have to figure out what the core problem is mentally. It's something mentally going on. And we know social media plays a big role in all of this behavior because everybody want to be a superstar with a gun.
It's senseless. And at this time of day, it's kids out here and other people going about their lives, doing the right thing. You know, what could make you that mad to want to take another person's life?
So we're still waiting to get some more information from Chicago police. At this time, it does not appear that anyone has been arrested while this investigation continues. But again, that 21-year-old man in stable condition here at the University of Chicago Hospital.
Breaking news in Chatham on the south side. Gunmen shoot a man as he is getting on a CTA bus. SL Rezai is in Chatham for us. And SL, I understand the gunman got away?
Yeah, Marie, that's right. And it's still an active crime scene right now here behind us. I'll show you. You'll see the CTA bus still parked at the stop here. This is the 79th Street bus was heading westbound. You can see it is right now wrapped in crime tape. That victim was getting onto the bus when police say shots were fired. The victim, we're told, in serious condition at the hospital as police are here at the scene trying to piece together exactly what led to the shooting.
Multiple calls of person shot on a CTA bus, 79th and Drexel, 79 and Drexel. We have a bona fide someone shot on that CTA bus.
And you can see at least 2 shell casings on the ground in this video near the front of the CTA bus. A glass partition on board shattered. This is on the corner of 79th and Drexel. The shooting happening just after 1 o'clock this afternoon. Chicago police say 2 men were standing on the sidewalk when they fired at a 20-year-old man multiple times as he was getting on the bus. The victim, shot in his back, was taken to the University of Chicago Medical Center in serious condition. We did see police here this afternoon interviewing multiple witnesses, including the CTA bus driver. We know right now police are searching for those 2 suspected shooters.
In another incident, mourners gathered to say goodbye to a rival gang member. A funeral, a moment meant for grief. Instead, it became a battlefield. Gunfire tore through the crowd. People ran. Children screamed. Shell casings littered the street. One witness would later describe the scene as a war zone. At least 15 people were wounded. But this wasn't random chaos. Investigators believe it was deliberate, calculated, a message.
Yeah, so police bumped the number of shooting victims up to 15 early this morning. They were shot during what police are calling an exchange of gunfire outside of a funeral yesterday. 10 of those victims are women, and we know that the oldest victim is a 65-year-old woman. The largest number of victims brought right here to Advocate Christ Medical Center. And Chicago police tell us they do have 1 person in custody being questioned right now. So this is new video just into our newsroom. You can hear the gunfire. Police telling us they found 60 shell casings at the scene. And if you look closely at that video, you can see a group of people, including several young children, standing outside talking when that gunfire erupts. Those people run for cover using a parked car as a shield. Now, this all happening right around 6:30 last night on 79th and Carpenter. Police say a black vehicle heading west started firing toward a group standing outside. That group attending the funeral, returning fire, hitting that black vehicle. Police say the vehicle with the shooters inside crashed into a parked car, and the 4 people bailed. Now, in the shooting, in the end, there were 15 victims, all survivors, taken to 5 different hospitals, 5 now in serious condition. And we know police must have gotten some sort of heads up that something might take place at this funeral, since commanders tell us one of their squads was stationed right outside when bullets started flying.
421, are you guys okay? 612, it's a black Hyundai going northbound on Carpenter, one way. Impala, black Impala going northbound the wrong way.
Now, that was scanner audio from the police officers who were there at the scene. Those who attended this funeral upset because they say this could have been prevented if police had done more after learning about this threat. Mayor Lightfoot taking heat from both residents and President Trump about this summer's heightened gun violence. Yesterday, she announced federal agents will be coming in after initially refusing the help. She tweeted late last night about this shooting, saying too many guns are on our streets and in the hands of people who should never possess them. These individuals will be held accountable. Now, residents in the neighborhood tell us they are actually glad to see the feds coming in to assist. They hope that things will get under control.
After the shootings, something else followed. Silence. Witnesses stopped talking. Victims stopped cooperating because fear traveled faster than police reports. According to prosecutors, threats and intimidation were used to keep people quiet, to make sure the street stayed silent even when bodies fell. And while neighbors whispered, another trail was forming online. Photos, videos, posts. Investigators allege social media became a digital bulletin board, a place to claim territory, taunt rivals, and boast about violence. What once disappeared into the night was now preserved forever on screens, and federal agents were watching. As the indictment unfolds, the violence becomes impossible to ignore. 13 murders, not rumors, not street legends, 13 lives. Among them, 2 young women, just teenagers, sitting in a car after work, employees at the same store. Their lives ended in seconds.
Robin and Larry, just moments ago, we heard from the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office. They are now identifying the 2 young women who died as a result of this shooting in a parked car. They say Zenobia Brantley, 19 years old, and Brittany Rice, 18 years old, both died. They were pronounced here at St. Bernard Hospital. We know a third person was in the vehicle with them, also a teenager. That person did survive and is now hospitalized.
These individuals were shot inside of the car. They got out, fired multiple shots inside of the vehicle. 2 females were shot multiple times.
So more than 25 evidence markers placed in the middle of the street by police during this investigation, many of them marking shell casings. The shooting taking place late last night in the 7700 block of South Eggleston. That's in the Winnacunnet Parkway neighborhood. Police say the victims were sitting in a parked Nissan when 3 men pulled up in a second vehicle described as a blue sedan by police. Those men got out and fired shots into that Nissan. The 2 teenage girls, 18 and 19, were both hit multiple times. They were brought here to St. Bernard, where they were pronounced a third person, a 19-year-old male, taken to the University of Chicago Medical Center after he was shot in the shoulder. Police say he is now stable at the hospital. Police also saying that among those shooters, they do not have anyone in custody right now.
Eric. Judy and Ravi, prosecutors say those defendants for years used threats, intimidation, and outright violence to silence witnesses and maintain the gang's power. This indictment lists more than a dozen murders and a slew of other crimes, including a mass shooting outside a funeral home.
The July 2020 shooting sent people running for cover. At least 15 people wounded when gunmen inside a black Chevy Malibu opened fire on a crowd gathered for a funeral near 79th and Carpenter.
I remember being out there after it happened and seeing casings all over the street and the sidewalk. And he said, this is like a war zone.
Father Michael Flager offered a $15,000 reward after the shooting. Now, some 5.5 years later, alleged members of a Southside gang facing federal charges related to that shooting and a string of others.
If there's not consequences, there's no reason to feel like you're going to get caught, then people continue to do it.
A federal grand jury indicting 6 alleged members and associates of the Faceworld street gang on racketeering, conspiracy, and other charges. Prosecutors say for years they committed murder, attempted murder, assault, and other acts of violence against anyone perceived to pose a threat against the Faceworld enterprise, which engaged in drug trafficking and carjackings.
Look, it's right in the sweet spot of what the U.S. Attorney's Office does. It's a classic RICO gang conspiracy. They've done them for years, and this fits right in the mold.
Prosecutors say the 2020 funeral shooting was in retaliation for the death of a Faceworld member. The indictment also charges one of the defendants with the 2019 murders of 18-year-old Brittany Rice and 19-year-old Zenobia Brantley. A man was also wounded in that shooting.
It's a long-running criminal gang with a lot of murders to their name, and you can tell that by the charges.
All 6 defendants are in federal custody. If convicted, they could face life in prison, and 3 of those defendants could face the death penalty.
Another victim was a rising figure in Chicago's drill scene, a rapper whose death sent shockwaves far beyond his neighborhood, Lil Mister, and he was the cousin of Lil Durk. His murder wouldn't be charged at the local level. It would resurface years later inside a federal racketeering case. By then, prosecutors weren't just naming suspects, they were connecting dots, and those connections stretched far beyond Chicago. The indictment doesn't stop at violence. It alleges a pipeline, moving cocaine and heroin across state lines, Chicago to Iowa, street corners to highways. Some of the names released from the indictment are as follows: Dante Harper, aka Tay-Tay, Tyrone Foy, aka T-Roy, Taiwan Taplar, aka Ty, Robert Lee Thomas, aka Lil Rob, Davion Harris, aka Dinko, Devon McClure, aka Disco, Dante Harper, aka Chubbs, and Amani McClure, aka Monty or Lil Monty Bucks. Money flowed, weapons followed, and with each transaction, the organization allegedly grew stronger, more insulated, more dangerous. Federal analysts would later say the case fit a familiar pattern, a long-running criminal conspiracy built on fear, money, and murder. But this time, the evidence was overwhelming. Years of surveillance, digital footprints, witness cooperation that finally broke through the silence. The walls were closing in.
6 alleged members of a notorious Chicago street gang were indicted today.
As Andrea Medina reports, federal prosecutors say they're responsible for more than a dozen murders.
Today, the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Northern District of Illinois announced a federal grand jury handed down indictments against 6 alleged members of a Chicago street gang, charging them all with racketeering conspiracy. Federal prosecutors allege the group is responsible for at least 13 homicides and a wave of violent crimes carried out across Chicago, all in an effort to maintain control and protect their Southside turf. Those facing charges include 28-year-old Dante Harper, 31-year-old Tyrone Foy, 25-year-old Tywan Tapler, 22-year-old Robert Lee Thomas, 28-year-old Davion Harris, and 26-year-old Davian McClure. Harper, McClure, and Foy are also charged with murder and aid of racketeering. The indictment outlines several violent incidents allegedly carried out by the gang, incidents that were covered on WGN. The indictment alleges that on or about June 17, 2019, Thomas opened fire on a CTA bus, shooting at an intended target and other passengers, leaving that person and others wounded. The indictment goes on to say defendant Tapler was with Thomas at the time of the shooting. The indictment further states that on July 21, 2020, Harper and several co-conspirators allegedly opened gunfire at the funeral of Donald Weathersby, resulting in multiple people being injured. The indictment goes on to allege that gang leaders believe Weathersby was a member of a rival gang and targeted him in retaliation. Federal authorities claim that the members also used social media to promote their criminal activities, taunting rivals and boasting about murders and other violent acts. The street gang has been under federal investigation for years. Half the defendants have already appeared for their arraignment, while the remaining ones are still waiting.
When the indictment was unsealed, 6 names appeared. 6 men, each allegedly tied to the same violent network. All were already in custody. Some faced racketeering charges alone. Others faced something far heavier, murder and aid of racketeering. Charges so severe that life in federal prison or even death became possible outcomes. For years, the violence had felt unstoppable, but now the consequences were finally catching up. This case isn't just about a gang. It's about what happens when street violence grows so vast, so organized, that it forces the federal government to step in. A reminder that silence doesn't last forever. That digital footprints don't fade, and that even years later, sealed envelopes can be opened, bringing the past rushing back into the present. The streets remember, the victims remain, and now a courtroom will decide whether this reign of violence truly comes to an end, or if it was only one chapter in a much darker story. Because in Chicago, numbers don't just mark streets. Sometimes they mark graves. Alright, y'all, there y'all have it, man. That's the crazy story of the 079 Faceworld RICO. Hey, man, get in that comment section. Let me know what y'all think. Drillers and trappers, we outside trapping and drilling 247. Don't go nowhere. Watch that next video.